Hi, this is Teresa from Phoenix Gate Crafts. I want to talk a little bit about knitting and crochet speed. Alright, so I'm going to give you the super not secret to crafting faster. And no matter what anybody else tells you, it pretty much all boils down to one concept, which is economy of motion. So if you've ever read the book Cheaper by the Dozen, not the Steve Martin movie, that is a piece of crap that has actually nothing story-wise to do with the book. Read the book. It's actually two of this guy's children who wrote about his research and how he utilized his family, which had 12 kids in it, to conduct studies on economy of motion for things like how to type faster and how to basically do anything faster with the least amount of motion. So this concept is pretty basic. A simple example is you go to the grocery store and all you need is milk. How do you get to the milk? Do you go around the outside where you go, past the cafe, past the bakery, past the deli, past the meat counter, past the meat section, and go to the far corner? Or do you try to cut through in as straight of a line as possible? Cutting through a couple of aisles, and then that spits you out pretty much right where you need to be. You cut through the aisles, right? That's economy of motion. You don't go around when you can go straight to it. So the same really applies for knitting or crochet. And a lot of it has to do with the way that you hold. So let's go with crochet first. So I hold mine knife style. There's also holding it like pencil style. This is very uncomfortable for me. And because I tend to hold my yarn up, this has no economy of motion for me. If I held my yarn down, it probably would, but I don't do that. That's not comfortable for me. So I'll, just to show you how uncomfortable this is, you can tell, if you're having trouble, if it doesn't feel comfortable, if it doesn't feel like you can easily grab, like I'm having to go really slow because if I don't go slow, see, I just lost, I'm having trouble grabbing the yarn. This is not an economy of motion for me. I can't go fast. I mean, I could probably with some practice, but this is very uncomfortable. I have to go way up and really twist my hand. I have to come down, grab, come back up, come back up. See how big this motion is right here? Versus if I'm here and I go like this, look at that. The only thing that's really happening is this hand is moving, and it's not moving that back. See how little this end is moving? It's only about this much versus this much. That was a lot more motion. This takes a lot longer than this. So I'm just going to finish out this row because I can, and I'm neurotic like that. Okay, you know what? I'm actually not. I don't feel like wasting your time. Then there's knitting. Knitting always takes longer. And part of it is that, you're doing 4 loops at the same time with the crochet, and you're winding up with a stitch this big, versus this, you only wind up with a tiny little row. So there's that difference. That's a little frustrating for crocheters. But when you first learn how to knit, you typically learn English style, which is throwing. So that's actually a very big motion. So, it all starts the same. You stick your needle up, and then you have to grab on with this hand. So you're moving from here to here. Then you have to go all the way around and then pull it in and push it through. And you do that every single time. See how big and slow and clunky this motion is? That's why a lot of people tell you to knit continental or flicking. So flicking is very similar to continental, but you're using your right hand to quickly get the yarn over without actually picking it up. Let's see. I can't really do it. I can't do it. I'm right-handed, but you'd never know by the way I actually do my crafting. Versus continental. So you saw how big that motion was. Versus all I'm doing is just like when I crochet. I am grabbing the yarn and pulling it through. That's why, especially when all you're doing is knitting for like sweaters, continental is easy. See how little my hands are moving? That means I can really bung through. And half the time it took me to do 4 stitches, I did all the rest of these, comparatively speaking. And these are wooden needles, and I don't like using wooden needles. So that's economy of motion. But there's another thing that I really want to talk about that's kind of related to this that isn't about the technique. It's about social media and comparing yourself to others. So what prompted this video was seeing several different posts on Facebook groups saying things akin to, I see all these wonderful projects and people are completing them so fast. I feel so jealous of your ability to complete these projects. The problem with this mentality is, one, you're not actually tracing an individual in these groups. It looks like people are completing things super fast, but that's because there's dozens of people posting every single day. You see, if you actually traced one person who's posting in these groups, you'll realize that they're not posting all that often. They're probably posting, 1 or 2 posts every couple of months. And in between, they're just responding to other people. It isn't so much that they're doing a ton, it's that it seems like they're doing a ton because you're actually seeing a bunch of different people, not the same person. And if you actually trace one person, you'll realize, they might be working for a couple of months on 2 or 3 different projects, and then those 2 or 3 different projects will come done at the same time, and then they'll post over the next couple of weeks those different projects and respond to those posts. It seems like a lot is getting done when actually it's not very much. And if you compare to a YouTuber, like, let's look at Fiber Spider. He looks like he crochets super, super fast when he's doing his instructional videos. But then you actually think about his situation. He works from home. He does voiceover work. Well, he does a lot of audible reading and those kinds of things. He's a very good voice artist, as well as producing videos on how to crochet. So when we see him crocheting, say, the Lost Souls shawl, and we go with him through several skulls in that shawl, and it looks like he's doing a ton. He's actually already completed that shawl several times. He has a lot of practice. He also, being a professional crocheter, he is able to crochet for hours and hours every single day. That amount of practice naturally helps him find his economy of motion, and then he's able to push it faster. You can do that too. It just means you have to put in that time. Versus if you work away from home, that's 8 hours a day. Not to mention commute, which can be an additional 1 to 2 hours. Plus getting meals prepared, plus dealing with children. All of a sudden, instead of having 8 hours a day where you can craft the way Fiber Spider can, you only get 2 or 3 hours, and the amount that you can complete in that amount of time is far less than he can. Or another one that I really like is Cinnamon Stitches. I really like how happy she is. I like the fact that, she's always making these huge projects because she is a bigger lady. But also, if you look at it, she's able to produce a lot because, one, I don't think she works outside of the home. Don't quote me on that, though. And also, she uses thick yarn, not to mention both of these people crochet, which, as you can notice, crochet goes way faster than knitting. Like, just on a rows thing, I didn't complete as much in this, but look at that. That's 3 rows, and it's already this tall. That's only 3 rows versus this one on almost the same size needle is 4 rows. I mean, I was able to complete 1 row very quickly, but it's literally half the size of 3 rows, and it's more rows. So that affects things as well. Also, using thicker yarn versus thinner yarn. If I did these same stitches on a thin size 1 yarn versus the size 4 that I was doing, everything would be very much smaller. And that affects how much you're able to get done and how fast, because if you're going for something that's this big regardless, smaller stitches means it doesn't get done as quickly. And so being able to devote time means that you're able to get things done quicker. Using thicker yarn means you're able to get things done quicker. Having a less complex pattern that you're able to kind of zone out to actually goes faster. So all of these factors create an illusion of speed. Also, let's also talk about comparing yourself to somebody else. There's a famous quote of, "Don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle." And I don't remember who said it. It's a famous thing about dealing with YouTube. Like, if you look at my YouTube videos, they're kind of crap, but I've only made about 20 videos. And if you compare that to somebody like Cinnamon Stitches, who posts videos, 3 times a week, she has a lot more experience. She has proper lighting. I don't. She makes sure she has better equipment. Very Pink Knits has a very professional setup, and Shandy from Expression Fiber Arts has an entire team that helps her make her videos that look very professional. Versus I'm just sitting here with my camera. Sometimes my husband is behind the camera and not being very helpful. I can say that because he isn't right now. And so, the quality is different. This doesn't look as finished as theirs. It doesn't have as much experience. And honestly, my first several videos, I said a lot, and I'm getting way better with the flow of my talking. And all of this comes with experience. The same thing happens with knitting and crochet. You've got people doing all these super fancy, complex patterns, but they've also been knitting or crocheting for years. Compared to when I started, when I was 16. You're never going to see my very first project because I was 16. It was 2003, and MySpace may have been in existence, but it sure as heck wasn't popular yet. And my phone, I did not have a cell phone. If you wanted to contact me, you had to call my parents' house. So you're never going to see the craptacular scarf that was my very first crochet project. It was double crochet, and the first about 6 inches, maybe 8 inches or so, was way too tight. And I wound up giving it away to a student in the beginning ballet class that I was helping with because she loved it and I hated it. And it took me, this much, and then I was told, oh, you need to loosen up. You need to be able to pull your hook through easily without having to move things over. Oh my God, that made things so much easier. But still, I wasn't going to undo what I'd already done. That was an entire week's worth of work for me. And it took me weeks to get that single, not super long scarf done. So comparing yourself to somebody else who's in a different stage of their creative life cycle, it's not fair to you, and it's just going to hurt you. So realize you're at the beginning, you have something to work towards, and you're doing good for where you're at. And I can guarantee you're farther ahead than I was in that same amount of time, because I knew exactly 2 stitches for 14 years. It took me 14 years to find YouTube and figure out that I can watch videos and learn stitches and stitch patterns. So I only knew the double crochet and the half double crochet for 14 years. And I made blankets out of 1 stitch, and that was it. And that's my 7-year blanket. It took me 7 years to complete a 7-foot by 6-foot blanket that is solidly double crochet. So I hope this helps you. I hope You're able to take something beneficial from this, and remember, you're doing fine. You can probably do better. We can all do better. We all pick our next project based on our current level and what we want to learn. So good luck in your endeavors, have fun, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.